Welcome everybody. Okay, here we go. Welcome everybody to the virtual career panel here with Autumn Urban Technology Movement and IBM. We welcome everybody that's on Facebook Live and everybody that is here in the Zoom. Today we'll be covering a couple of conversations, but focusing on really focusing in on those soft skills and then breaking out into our break rooms to focus on those specific occupations that you would like to pursue. So, my name is East White. I am your host. I am the program director of Austin Urban Technology Movement. So my job is essentially to make sure we're able to share all of this knowledge and expertise from those who are in the field and share it to those who are in the community who would like to then join the technology movement. Our purpose of Autumn is generally to make sure that we provide the skills, or at least the ability to gain the skills via education, job opportunities, as well as the actual devices and technology you need to stay connected in nowadays. Thank you for IBM for joining us today. Definitely, we appreciate you bringing in on all of your volunteers and help behind the scenes and here today to make sure this event was made possible. We really appreciate you for sharing your knowledge and expertise and look forward to having a great event today. So before we do anything, this is for all those who are in the Zoom. If you could go ahead and select what occupation or career that you'll be interested in by making it your last name. I could share a list here. To share a list, we have cybersecurity, we have blockchain, design thinking, software engineering, cloud computing. And if you could select one of those and make that your name, we will also include the information in the chat for you to select one of the occupations to help us assign you to the break room later on in this event. But simply choose participants on your screen, select more, and then rename. So during this event, as I already mentioned, we will have breakout sessions, but before that, we will carry on through our panel, talk about those soft skills, share some expertise from our IBM panelists, then split off into the breakout sessions. We will come back together in the main room and we will have a resource presentation on our skills build application. And then we will have closing remarks. And those who have already signed up for our mock interviews, stay tuned towards the end. We will have instructions for you for the breakout rooms in the mock interviews. But without further ado, I'd like to go ahead and pass it on to our panelists. And Michael, you can take it away.
Hey, thank you so much, Issa. I really appreciate it. It's my honor to introduce a panel of IBMers that cross-cut many different parts of the IBM Corporation. I'll spend about 15 minutes or so asking some questions, and I would actually invite everyone that's on the Zoom to also please ask your questions in the chat. I'll try to pull those in and weave them into the narrative here as we go. With that said, I'd like to introduce our panel to everyone here. First, we have Anthony Tessman, who's a diversity talent acquisition sourcer within the IBM corporate human resources area. His responsibilities include talent recruitment in the underrepresented minority constituency within traditional and historically Black colleges and universities. Prior to university recruitment, Anthony held many positions within IBM, product sales, services, and client solution delivery. Anthony's won numerous awards in his 23 years with the IBM Corporation and continues to drive inclusive and diverse engagements that help move the IBM business forward. Jessica Tremblay is a user experience designer and front-end developer at IBM. She runs IBM's global network for enterprise design thinking chapters and is design lead for the Racial Equity in Design Initiative under the general manager of IBM's design area. She's an active member of the local Austin community and volunteers her time in organizations like Boss Babes ATX, Women Who Code, AIGA Austin, which is the Professional Association for Design in Austin. Morgan Langlace is the Data and AI Customer Success Manager and Software Engineer for IBM. She works with customers to create AI solutions for solving challenging problems. Morgan's a former NASA intern and Texas State University graduate. In her free time, she enjoys gaming, tinkering with electronics, and spending time with her husband and 3 dogs. Next, we have Zarella Rendon, who's a practice leader in the IBM North America Data and AI Expert Labs and Learning team. She's also the chair for IBM Austin's Diversity Council. She's an entrepreneur, an author, an invited expert in many standards groups, and she works as a volunteer for community to enable women and girls in STEM and engineering careers. Finally, we have Uchechukwu Ubo. Ubo is a computer engineering graduate from Prairie View A&M University and has a passion for technology, people, and diversity. He helps IBM customers to adopt our cloud through the creation of proofs of concept as solutions developers and with our global cloud acceleration team. Outside of that, he enjoys his adorable Yorkies, mentoring, and learning new technologies. So hopefully you can see from our panel of guests, we have a very wide group of people with different perspectives. I'm going to ask the first question to Anthony. And as a recruiter, in broad terms, I'd love to have you talk through briefly, what exactly is the interview process?
Well, thank you so much, Mike. I hope everyone can hear me. Figure you pick on the HR guy first, right? But definitely, excited to be here. Well, the application process is actually simple, right? You apply, you take the assessment, you get an interview, and a decision is made. What's important, I think, is what's behind the scenes, right? And how you get through. As an HR, a corporate HR recruiter, I have responsibility for all the roles of IBM. So not just one specific niche role. And when you're getting thousands of applicants per role, you have to make some good decisions for the business as well as for that candidate experience. So, when I look at it from two angles. There's someone who's applying and there's someone who's competing. Now, I'll share the differences with you on that real briefly. That person that's applying, good resume looks good, but their generalizations around, I know a little bit of this, I have a little bit of that, I've dabbled in this and I'm an expert at that. That's great, but now you have to collectively bring that together to articulate your value proposition. We don't, that takes a lot of time. Now, on the other hand, that person that's competing, they've specifically identified the skills that map to the requirements of the role, and that person is going to get screened earlier. So you apply, you go through this screening process. Do you fit the job profile? Or, you just kind of tire kicking. Then we say, all right, now you get an assessment, right? You pass the assessment. Then you get a screening for an interview. So the interview is right before a decision is made. So you want to get to the interview, right? That's not automatic. And the process can be quite rigorous, but it's really simple, building your value proposition for the role you're competing for. And I think that will get you to the interview.
Well, thank you for that. So I think that actually is a nice segue to a question I could ask to Yubo. So, in preparation for getting into that interview process, you have to kind of, as you hear or listen, network, right? But networking isn't just getting a bunch of LinkedIn requests out or going out and shaking hands. What are the actions or what are signs of kind of good networking? What can someone do to demonstrate that?
All right. Thank you for the question. Awesome question. I think the three main things, right? The first one I want to point out is network with a purpose, right? Understand the person you're networking, right? It's easy to get network connections on LinkedIn, but understand what value can you bring to that person, right? And that can only be after you've understood what they need, right? So understand the person, come with a purpose. And the last one I really would like to point out is make sure they understand what you're good at, right? Not just connecting, hey, my name is this, add me on LinkedIn, but understand that they need to know what you're good at just in case they need those skill sets later on. So the 3 points, just to recap: network with a purpose, come with value, and lastly, make sure they know your strengths. So that's
Absolutely. And, actually that reiterates, I think, Anthony's point as well, because a lot of what Anthony mentioned was around tailoring and kind of making sure you are getting into this and not just applying in, but actually seeking out and going for that position. So in kind of talking through those interviews, right, I'll actually turn to Morgan for a moment. Interviews are really about what you know and about your ability to contribute on a team, right? So what is the most important thing that people aren't prepared to address in that interview process?
Thank you. Yes. So I think the first point would be authenticity. So in the technology field, a lot of times we want to portray ourselves as the smartest person in the room, and we're very skilled and we can do all these amazing things. But whenever, hiring managers are looking at who do they want on their team, they want to know who you are as a person as well. So not just what your skills are, but bring your true authentic self to the table whenever you're interviewing. I've actually had instances where I've been on moderately important calls and one of my dogs just goes scrolling across the background and doing whatever they do, squeaking a toy or something. And I mean, it's pretty funny, but especially in 2020 with COVID going on, we are all just tiny beings floating on a big rock through space. Like just portray who you are as a person, not necessarily just your skills, because you're more than just a one-dimensional being. Also, I would say definitely have empathy for the people that you are interacting with, whether it's like in an interview or a work environment. You may be the smartest person in the room, but if you can't portray your point to others in an empathetic manner, then you probably won't get much accomplished.
Awesome, thank you. And that's really that kind of is partially how I live my life at a certain point, but that speaks to a lot of the challenges that come up, especially given where we are with COVID. So Zarella, talking about resumes, right? What are the things that jump off the page when you're reviewing a resume? What gets you excited about a candidate?
Yeah, so I've seen, some amazing resumes, and I actually had one that I saw last year when I was doing some interviews that was more like a blog. I've never seen that before, where it was just a series of questions and the person was answering as if they were being interviewed in their resume. So it was kind of cute, but at the end of the day, it didn't bring what I was looking for. And I mean, the things that you of course look for besides the technical acumen of the person, that's depending on what they're applying for, you want to see a very clear and concise life statement. What is your goal in life? What are you looking for? What are you going for, right? And then I kind of skip through all the different job listings that you have, and I go right to the bottom and see what the person is saying personally. Do you have something at the end that talks about you, like who you are, not what you've done, right? So anybody can write a list of what you've done. That's perfectly fine, and it's great to see, but who are you, right? Is there something at the bottom that says, I love to travel, I speak 3 languages, I volunteer for a living, or, what do you do? What do you do in your spare time? I see a lot of different things there, and it's always interesting because from my perspective, the person I'm hiring has to fit in with my group, right? They have to be a team player. They can't be a self-contained person that doesn't want to spread out and meet people and talk to people. So you kind of get that information from the resume, and then of course when you do an interview, that also comes out. So just make sure you have a neat, concise resume, a good life statement. Run spell checker, please. And get people to read it. because if you don't get anybody to read it, it's just what you wrote, and you don't know how it comes across, right? So get your best friend to look at it, get your somebody you work with to look at it, and give them a chance to give you some pointers. At the end of the day, that paper is you, right? And it has to reflect you.
Awesome. So actually, I want to ask Anthony, just kind of going back for a sec, as our global worldwide recruiter expert in the room, can you spend 30 seconds and just tell us what are the things that are common pitfalls that someone should watch out for on their resume? We already heard spell check is one of them.
Yes, definitely. Well, I kind of concur with what Zarella and Morgan said. Be yourself, but you do need to put your skills out first, right? So that the Zarellas and the Morgans can look at your resume. So if you don't fit the job profile, you don't get that conversation, that look. So, I think the pitfalls are just that, not building your resume to the role, embellishing. There are a variety of areas. The list could go on. So I think it's just best to focus on the skills and identify who you are.
Cool, thank you. And I think that takes us to as a great wrap up to our final question to Jessica. So it kind of seems like there's many routes into technology and more specifically into design. You can be self-taught, or you can have a degree, or you can do both. What is it that employers are seeking when it comes to careers in design?
Really interesting, Mike. And I love the answer I always give to this, which is it depends, right? My favorite consultant answer. But with design, it depends on the vertical of design that you're interested in. And within the past, I'd say 5 to 6 years, design it's getting more of a lift, right, in the tech industry, and it's becoming more prominent. And there's many ways you could take your career in design with user experience. You could do front-end development / front-end engineering and visual design, service design, product, you name it, right? But a lot of the skills that we look for with design is how are you solving hard problems? How are you solving those problems, and being able to describe that process and being able to describe the outcomes that you're getting. Are they human-centered? Are you working with users? So do you have to have a degree or be self-taught? I personally, I'm self-taught. I taught myself everything when it came to front-end development and design, only because back in the day when I was in college, when the dinosaurs roamed the earth, apparently there was no careers in user experience design or degrees in that, right? So a lot of the industry founders were self-taught. So we look for that lived experience too, and being of different lived experiences and different just locations, diversity, you name it, like bringing that is very much wanted and much needed in a career in design, especially right now.
That's awesome. So that actually takes us to our breakout panels, I think. And everyone that's on these breakouts has lived that experience in some form or another. The breakouts that we will now move into are centered around a couple of different areas. First, we have software engineering, programming, web development. We have cybersecurity. We have data science, AI, ML, which is what I do. Cloud computing and blockchain, and finally design, as you heard. For each of these, please, as you heard earlier, if you're in the Zoom, right click on your name and choose more and rename and put what you're interested in, and that'll help move us over to the right places. You'll have about 15 minutes to go through and have a Q&A with our panelists that you see here, and we'll come back and do another 15 minutes. You'll get to have a couple of conversations. Isa, is there anything you want to add to that, or anything that I missed?
No, you hit all the points. We will have 2 sessions. For those who are on Facebook Live, if you're interested, we will have a slot for you. Go ahead and go to our Eventbrite. Well, first go to autumntx.org/events and select the link there for the virtual career panel, and they'll allow you to log in on Eventbrite. Then we'll let you in. We'll give you about 15 minutes to join, just so we won't have this much disruption during the breakout rooms, but you will have a chance to join as well.